Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Mr. B's Healthy Lifestyle. I'm Mr. B, your host. Today I'm going to be bringing to you some of the meat substitutes. I've been asked a few times about what do you substitute your meat with, and where do you get your protein? And it's one of those, questions that if you're a vegan or a plant-based dieter, you get that question all the time because people are kind of like acting like they're concerned about your protein. Well, you have nothing to worry about on your protein if you're doing a plant-based diet. So I made a list of all of the meat substitutes that I was using during my lifestyle change and things that I decided I was going to use. I might not use all of them, but I do use a majority of them. And of course, the first one on my list is something that whenever you hear its name, you go, oh my God, no, not that stuff. Yeah, it's tofu. Now, before you get all wigged out because I said tofu, just hear me out, Of course, it is made from soybeans, and it's high in protein and calcium. It's a great substitute for pork, chicken, beef, seafood, and it's been in the part of the Asian cuisine for like ages. So it's not something new. It's been around for a long time. It is soft and spongy, bland, tasteless, that makes a perfect candidate to create your own flavors, because it is a blank canvas for your creativity, using spices and flavors to your taste. You can be your own creator of your dish with this type of item to use it as your substitute for your meats. And of course, you create your own great breakfast, lunch, and dinners. It's eggs no more for me because I use tofu. As a scramble, in the mornings, I'll add nutritional yeast, bell pepper, onion, chilies, and I like it spicy. Or if you don't have to. You can just use a handful of mushrooms and so on. And you take it and you roll it up into a corn tortilla. I mean, how much better can you get than that? And you can't tell the difference between it and eggs once you actually cook it, a certain way. There is a way to cook it, and there's a way not to cook it. You can do a lot of things with this. It can be prepared so many different ways, like sloppy joes, for instance. You use a firm pack of tofu and squeeze the liquid out of it between like two plates. You put some canned goods on top of it, and it'll squeeze it out nice and slowly while you're preparing all of your other stuff, your onions, bell peppers, or whatever you're going to put in it. And once you do that, you take and you crumble it into a skillet. You simmer it until a lot of the liquid comes out of it, and it starts, browning some. And once it starts browning, you add some diced onions, some peppers, if you like. And once it is lightly browned, add a couple dashes of liquid smoke, just a little for flavor, And then take 2 small cans of tomato sauce and pour onto the tofu and simmer it a little bit. Add your spices like turmeric, garlic, salt, pepper, and maybe a tablespoon of honey. I put a little bit of honey in some of mine because it gives it that nice sweet flavor like you do for sloppy joes. And after you simmer it for about 5 minutes or so, and bam, you have it, sloppy joes, man. You serve it on a whole grain bread, or you use it as a potato topper on a stuffed baked potato. There's a lot of great ideas, and it's easy and healthy for you. Okay, now get ready for number 2 on my list. Bam, yeah, here it is. It is tempeh. Tempeh is a lot firmer than tofu. It is made from fermented soybeans and has a nutty flavor to it. It's packed with protein, fiber, vitamins, and it does not have to be pressed like tofu does to get the water out of it before preparing it. It makes it a lot less of a mess, I think. You can slice it, dice it, you can grind it up or add it to other dishes in a food processor. If tempeh seems bitter, slightly to you at the beginning, you can always steam it for like a couple of minutes and then add it to your dishes. That'll eliminate that kind of a slight bitter taste. It doesn't taste like that to everybody, just some people. The texture of tempeh is great for substituting ground beef in all of your dishes. Or it can be used to make Philly cheesesteak sandwiches or wraps. You can even use it as fish and chips. Now I've tried this little thing with a Philly cheesesteak, and it turned out amazing. I love making those once in a while. The other thing that you can do with it, there's several recipes online that give you a wide span of things to use, tempeh in. You can make meatballs, which is one of my favorites also. A very simple recipe for meatballs is you take a half a cup of white onions minced, 3 cloves of garlic, 1 flax egg. Now, flax egg is basically just flax seed that's been grounded up into a powder, and you add a little bit of water to it. And I'm usually doing like 2 tablespoons of water to 1 tablespoon of flax seed, and that kind of does it. You just double it or triple it if you need more. 8 ounces of tempeh, a third cup of Parmesan vegan type cheese, 2 tablespoons of Italian seasoning, about like a quarter cup of parsley, and about a half cup of whole grain breadcrumbs. Now you can get those by toasting a heavy grain piece of bread and just basically crumbling your own and get it out of that. You can also add your salt and pepper, to your taste. And so what you do with it is you saute the onions and the garlic in a little saucepan with something like either water or a vegetable broth. Then you add all of your ingredients into a food processor. You make it into like a moldable dough, and you make your little meatballs out of it, and you put them on a little cooking sheet and place it into your oven at about 350 degrees, and you bake them for about 15 or 20 minutes, just enough to make them nice and brown, and voila, man, you've got meatballs. You add those to your spaghetti squash, and it's a meal. I mean, you can't get any better than that. All right, it's time for number 3. And number 3 is one of the items that I started using in the beginning. When I started my meatless journey, I discovered Seitan. Not Satan, but Seitan. Yes, it's a going joke. It's kind of entertaining whenever you go into a restaurant and say, I would like to have a Seitan sandwich. Yeah, right. Well, if gluten is not a problem for you, then Seitan is the substitute for you. It is one of the most meat-like replacements I have found. It's made from processed wheat gluten and is high in protein. Depending upon how you flavor it and make it, you can make it like chicken, pork, beef, a loaf, meatloaf, whatever. I mean, it is so versatile. It has a chewy texture that can hold up to grilling, frying, or anything you put it through. You can buy it at a store, or you can make it on your own with recipes that are available online. Seitan can be used to replace comfort foods like hot dogs, barbecue ribs, thick steak, or even Italian sausage. The uses for this meat substitute is almost endless in my book. I like making kebabs with it. It's easy. You just need vegetables. You cut them into chunks. Get the seitan and season it to your liking, and onions and kebab sticks. There you go. You have kebabs. You grill them, bake them, or you roast them. Seitan is very easy to make, like I said. The basic recipe is like, for instance, 2 cups of vital wheat gluten, half a cup of nutritional yeast, 2 tablespoons of onion powder, 1 cup of vegetable broth, of course, low sodium, 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. And you want to have like 4 cups of vegetable broth that is low sodium on the side while you're making it. 1 clove of garlic and a diced up onion. Small onion usually does pretty good. So what you do is you make your dough from the 2 cups of wheat gluten, half cup of yeast, onion powder, and the 1 cup of vegetable broth and the soy sauce. You combined all those to make your dough. Once you make the loaf, you need to knead it for a few minutes to make like these little dough loaves. And once you get those made, you can split them into half, or you can make one whole one. You take them both and you put them into a big soup pan, or what I call a soup pan. It's like a big kettle. And then you put it down in the bottom of that kettle, and you pour the other 4 cups of broth over it, like a soup. And you add your cloves of garlic and your onion. And you cook it in there and simmer it for about 30 to 40 minutes. 45 minutes probably sometimes. Once that's done, you take it out and voila, you got a little loaf. You can slice it, dice it, whatever you want to. It looks like little chunks of beef. It's wonderful. All right, now for number 4 on my list. This next meat substitute is heaven sent, because the good Lord opened up the heavens and said, let there be a fruit that looks like meat. Yes, it's jackfruit. Yeah, jackfruit is a tropical fruit native to the southwest India. And it is a relative to the fig, the mulberry, and the breadfruit trees. This fruit is great for standing in for meat because of its mild taste and meat-like texture. It also will take on any spices or flavors that you want it to taste like. It is a great replacement for meat in Indian, Mexican, Chinese, and so on. It can be used to make like pulled pork barbecue sandwiches. Yes, I'm into the sandwiches. Oh my God, yes I am. Or dishes that normally would use pot roast. If you want it to be like a little more chewier, you just bake it for like 15 minutes on a cookie sheet at 325 in your oven. It even works in stews, chilies, and it just keeps on going. I mean, it's phenomenal what you can do with this thing. Sometimes I do make a veggie meat stew with potatoes, carrots, onions, garlic, corn, green beans, and 1 package of jackfruit. You can buy it like at any health food store, Sprouts, Whole Foods. It comes in a box and it's on the shelf. It's not in a refrigerated area. It's in a box on the shelf, and it keeps for a long, long time. It has a long shelf life. My recipe for the veggie stew is basically a cup of each of your veggies with water. You cover them and boil the veggies and add seasoning, salt, pepper, turmeric, etc. To your taste. You put the jackfruit into a nonstick pan and season it to taste, browning it lightly, and then add it to your veggie mix. Cook under a medium heat for about 30 minutes or so, and then voila, stew. It's so good that your tongue will slap you for more. So let's get on to number 5 on my list. This next meat substitute is the fungus among us. Yes, it's mushrooms. Because they are rich in flavor with an earthy, meaty taste, especially portobello mushrooms. There's a variety of mushrooms to use in a lot of different dishes. There's, of course, more than one type of mushroom. There's several that you can get like at your local store, just in the produce section. From just being sautéed to being grilled, baked, stir-fried, and just continuously a lot of things that you can do with them. Even put them into salads. You can slice, dice, chop, or just eat them whole. Some of the dishes range from burgers to meatballs to mushroom steaks to stroganoffs, or just plain sautéed mushrooms. There are a lot of recipes online that involve mushrooms. You can look them up and you won't run out of recipes, that's for sure. I like a good old portobello marinated in a garlic sauce and grilled. My garlic sauce is very easy and simple to make. It's 4 cloves of garlic. You gotta have lots of garlic, right? Yes. 1 cup of vegetable broth, a little diced onion, a little diced ginger root. Now, whenever you dice up the ginger root, it doesn't have to be very coarse or fine. You can put slices in there if you like. You can add 2 tablespoons of date syrup to give it that little sweet flavor. And you add all of this into a little saucepan, and you saute it for about 10 minutes or so and then you marinate your portobello mushrooms for about an hour or so. After they marinate in the sauce, you take them, you grill them, and you grill them to your liking. Me, I like to make them just a little bit of toasty on each side and leave the centers a little bit more moist. But you might like getting yours a little bit more chewier, and just don't burn it doing it. But of course, that is a awesome little meal. Portobello burger is to die for. I mean, it's great, and it makes a excellent meat substitute, and it's full of all sorts of minerals that you really need in your diet. Okay, now number 6 on my list is TVP, textured vegetable protein. I know it sounds a little weird, and it's kind of interesting. This is an inexpensive, useful ingredient that can be used in several dishes. It is a soy that has been dehydrated, and then when you rehydrate it, it can be made into whatever you want. It comes in granules or chunks when you purchase it. Some great uses include ground beef dishes, cutlets, burgers, meatloaves, pork recipes, chicken recipes, and so on. I have yet to use TVP, but have looked at online recipes and found several that included this ingredient. When you look for it on the internet, you just basically look it up under TVP or textured vegetable protein. Don't have any recipes for this one here to give out just yet, but I will include one in one of my segments of my podcast one day. And now for number 7 on my list. This one is kind of classified up underneath the gluten-free vegan meat choices. There's not actually a certain recipe just for it. It's kind of like a mixture of different things. Gluten-free meat does not have a specific recipe, and there are several ways to make it depending on how you want to use it. For instance, if you want to make meatballs, you can use cauliflower, garlic, quinoa, and gluten-free panko. Or for burgers, it's beans, lentils, onions, and so on. You get kind of the idea. All you do is leave out the grains like wheat, oats, barley, rye, and other products of this nature, the things that have the gluten in them. I found several recipes online at Forks Over Knives and OneGreenPlanet.org and so on. There are several sites with a lot of gluten-free choices, like the meatballs recipe. Chickpea burgers are another one of my favorites. The recipe for chickpea burgers is basically 2 cloves of garlic, 2 cups of cooked chickpeas, 2/3 cup of chopped parsley, 3/4 cup of diced onions, 1 teaspoon of ground cumin, 1 teaspoon of chili powder, a 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt, 3 tablespoons of lemon juice, 1 chia egg or 1 flaxseed egg, a 1/4 cup of almond flour, 1 minced large roasted red pepper. You blend them all in a food processor and make patties. And you can bake them at 375 for about 25-30 minutes. Makes a wonderful burger. Those things are great. And it depends on which recipe that you find online. Everything looks a little bit different. And they classify it as a gluten-free way of cooking your meals. And it's exceptional to, a lot of things that if you're trying to stay, gluten-free. All right, now, number 8 on my list is lentils. Lentils have been around for a very long time, and it's a main staple in the plant-based lifestyle as well. Lentils are full of protein and can be prepared quickly for a fast-paced household or a busy schedule lifestyle. Since they are so small, they cook faster than larger beans, which makes them a very big item in a little package. They're packed with protein, fiber, nutrients, and all the essential things that you need on a regular basis. The bonus part of lentils is that they come in multiple colors. So you can get them like in red, green, black, and brown varieties. And there's so many of them out there, you can buy them in bulk, and they're very, very inexpensive. Just to give you an idea of what these little lentils are packed with, 100 grams of lentils has 116 calories, which is great. It has 9.2 grams of protein, which is very good, 3 grams of fat, 2 1/3 grams of carbs, 7.9 grams of fiber, and only 1.8 grams of sugar. Now, lentils make so many great dishes and substitute foods that is almost endless to what can be prepared from them. Things that can be made from lentils range from burgers, meatballs, meatless meatloafs, tacos, nachos, enchiladas, salads, shepherd's pies, stews, soups, and of course, you get the idea. The list just goes on. There are so many versatile ways to use lentils in a plant-based lifestyle that it's still open for your own creations. Well, of course, now it's time for the last one on my list, which is number 9, beans and legumes. Beans and legumes are inexpensive. They're very healthy for you and satisfyingly very filling. They're so full of protein, fiber, and nutrients, and there are so many varieties to choose from, like pinto beans, black beans, lima beans, navy beans, zucchini beans. These are just a few I have used. Of course, there are the peas, like black-eyed peas, chickpeas, split peas, purple hull peas, and let's not forget the famous peanut, which is my favorite as well. And to most, it's very good and satisfying unless you're allergic to them and have an allergic reaction to them. There are a lot of pea varieties as well, and some I probably haven't discovered yet. Beans are great for soups, stews, chilies, or just good old plain bowl of beans. I was raised on a bowl of beans and good old cornbread or, those type of things. Peas can be used in salads, soups, stews, and, just as well. There are so many recipes that can be found online and in cookbooks everywhere. And if you are brave enough to make your own creations, then please do share. My favorite is a 3-bean chili that I make on good cool days and sometimes in the summertime, which is my own creation and very simple. I use 1 cup of pinto beans, a cup of black beans, a cup of kidney beans, and 1 pack of jackfruit, 1 diced onion, 3 to 6 minced garlic, or you can use less to your liking. It's up to you. 1 teaspoon of chili powder, 1 teaspoon of cumin, a teaspoon of turmeric root, and 1 tablespoon of minced ginger. I soak my beans overnight and then cook them for half a day. I saute the onions and garlic in vegetable broth, or you can do it in your favorite way, whichever. After the beans are cooked, I add all the ingredients and cook for another 30 to 45 minutes, and there you go. Some great chili for those cozy days you just want something different. Well, there you go. There's a list of my meat substitutes that I have used in the past and currently use at this time also. I also want to share with you one of my cheese mix recipes that I put together. I found it online and it was very interesting, and I kind of tweaked it just a little bit just to make it just right for me. If you are one of the cheese fanatics like me, this is how I make it. I use a cup of cashews. Now, the cashews, I prefer using roasted, unsalted. That's just me. And you want to use something that's, a little bit different, then go ahead. 3/4 cup of nutritional yeast, 1/4 cup of oat flour, 1/4 cup of tapioca flour, 1 teaspoon of paprika, 1 tablespoon of date sugar, 2 teaspoons of powdered mustard, 2 teaspoons of sea salt, and 2 teaspoons of onion powder. You combine all of these inside of a food processor and work it until it turns into a powder. Now you take the powder after it's done in the food processor and put it in a bowl that you can seal the lid on. Now to make the cheese, all you have to do is take out a couple scoops of the cheese mix, put it into a little saucepan, and add your favorite milk substitute like almond milk, and stir it in slightly to where it starts getting a nice little consistency. Now remember that when it starts cooling down, it does get thicker, so you might want to kind of experiment with it to get it to your right thickness that you like. But this becomes a great cheese mix that you can put over pasta or potatoes, even nachos, and so on. It's great. I've used it, and it's very satisfying to me. Well, once again, I'd like to thank everybody for listening to my podcast, and I encourage any of your input. You can email me at mrbhealthylife@gmail.com. And of course, I don't want to forget my good friends there at pH Aloe. Learn how Aloe plus pH balance can restore your health to your life. Restore your body naturally with pH Aloe at www.myphaloe.com. Tell them that Mr. B sent you. And once again, we come to the end of another episode. And always remember that health should be your life. So be wise, be healthy. It's the best choice.